Welcome to the first question and answer session for the Circle of Ceridwen Saga discussion and idea group. I'd like to thank Janine Ayetner for creating this wonderful group for all of us. You've submitted some terrific questions, so let's get right to them. First question. I would be curious to know if Octavia reads other authors, and if she does, who does she read? That is from my Lone Star Wrangler, Suzanne. Suzanne, I read very few living authors. Amongst the dead, one of my favorites is Marti Renault, whose two books about the Theseus myth, Bull from the Sea and The King Must Die, I think are just brilliant pieces of historical fiction. I also reread Henry James's The Ambassadors every year. And right now on my bedside table, I have the 3-volume collection of the complete short stories of Guy de Maupassant. He died in 1898, so that gives you an idea of my tastes. Larry would like to know, what made you decide to give Tinder his own story in the middle of the saga? I'm listening to it now. Great standalone story on its own, but to me just doesn't fit in with the rest of the story arc so far. Just curious. Yes, Larry, and let me say how delighted I am that you're listening to Nano Nagel's brilliant audiobook performances. I never was a fan of audiobooks myself until I heard her perform my own novels. I think that my webmaster put his finger on the pulse of Tinder when he said that this book was an offshoot from the main tree. When I first created Tinder in book 4, as a character he intrigued me deeply. And then I was back on Gotland again and I wanted to expand his character and sort of write a love letter to the island of Gotland. What I didn't understand when I did that was how important he and his book would be to the deaf community. I received so many letters from the deaf, from parents of the deaf, and from teachers of American Sign Language thanking me for presenting them with such a positive role model in Tinder. So that's been very gratifying. Terry asks, how much research did I do on 9th century beekeeping? I am a beekeeper and love the accounts of Tinder's bees. I love this question and this comment, Terry. I was deeply inspired by standing with a young beekeeper at Storm King, which is a museum of outdoor sculpture in New York State. I went with him to the enclosure where there are 4 hives on the property, and we approached them with no protective clothing whatsoever. No veils, no hats, no gloves. And he opened the hives, and watching him lovingly interact with those bees was a very moving experience for me, and I took that experience to be Tinder's. I am not certain who asked this, but it's an important question. Will Ceridwen and Sidroc remain in Gotland, or will they be relocating to a different country other than England? Well, I think now that we see how wrenching it was for Sidroc to leave Gotland, and we also know how much Ceridwen loves her adopted island, so I would be very surprised if anything can really get her away. This is from Jennifer. What made Octavia choose the name Ceridwen for her main character? I named my own daughter Ceridwen for its unusual sound and beautiful meaning, which I understand to be as beautiful as a poem. So I'm interested to know why Octavia chose it. Jennifer, I chose that name more than 25 years ago for my heroine in honor of the great Welsh goddess. And Marty has 2 questions. First, Miss Randolph, how long did you do research before writing the first book? I have always been attracted to the Anglo-Saxon period ever since I was a girl. So it's been a lifelong study for me. And as far as ongoing research, as we know, it is never ending. Just look at the recent find in BJ 581, the grave in Birka, Sweden, which turns out to contain the body of a woman. Marty's second question is one shared by Karin. asking what books would I recommend for further reading about this historical period. There are so many great books out at this point. My own personal library numbers in the hundreds. But I am truly inspired by the fact that so many of my readers would like to know more. And I'm starting to think that a companion guide to the saga could be a very good idea. Eva asks, how do you pronounce names like Wittenchester, Cirencester, Glastonbury, Oundle, and other such places? Yes, Eva. Fortunately, many of the names sound surprisingly similar to their modern counterparts. In the back of every novel, there is a list of equivalent names, the Anglo-Saxon and modern English, so that will really help you. Wittenchester is in fact modern Winchester. The Old English CE is sounded like a CH. And Oundle is just the way it's pronounced today, Oundle. Amanda has a good one. It was such a surprise to find the many gold pieces sewn in Ceridwen's cloak, and what a wonderful start for she and Sidroc. My question is this, were those gold pieces always there in the writing of the long journey to Gotland, or were they a total surprise to even you and a beginning for a happy life on Gotland? Why would Ceridwen travel to Four Stones with that much gold to begin with? I know she is a very rich woman, but also a very smart one. Any insight into your thoughts on this would be delightful. Well, Amanda, travel was so fraught with danger in those days that bringing a way to ransom yourself and your companions was always a wise idea. And remember that she was traveling with her little son, Carrick, at that point. Yes, she knew that they were there the whole time, but of course she was afraid to tell Sidroc about them, as she said to him in the boat as they neared Gotland, because she was fearful that he would use that gold to drive her even further away. But now that she knows that she loves him, of course they're both very happy to be able to start their new life together with that much treasure. And mention of Sidroc brings us to Elaine's question. Please give my warmest regards to Octavia and ask her if she might do a novel about Sidroc in his early years before he met Ceridwen. You shall learn more, Elaine, I promise you. And our last question from Karin, who asks, when researching Circle of Ceridwen, what was the most surprising thing you learned? That is a great question, Karin. 25 years ago when I began writing book one and really started to do some deep research, the thing that most shocked me was the amount of legal rights that Anglo-Saxon women possessed, rights that they lost after the Norman conquest in 1066 and did not regain for almost another 1,000 years. I have an essay about that on my website, which you might enjoy reading. Learning that one thing truly opened my eyes. All right, thank you. Everyone who submitted a question, whether I answered it here or on the Facebook fan page, I have written down your name and it's on a little slip of paper in this goblet. So let's see whose name I draw. And it is Marty. Marty, you are going to get a signed and inscribed copy of book one. So if you'd like to have this, please tell Janine and she will make sure that I get your information and I'll get this right off to you. Thank you all so much for such wonderful questions. It's really been fun and we'll do this again.